On this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds, we talk about trying hard and failing. We discuss delegation, dealing with disappointment and frustration, and finally, we talk about contentment. Let's get into it.
Game begin.
Crafters of dreams in vivid streams, charge on with gallant flair. 6 nights of trade, their mark is made in the board game designer's lair. Andrew leads with valiant heeds, his strategy supreme. Sean by his side, ideas collide, a crowdfunding team's dream. Rise, creators, pledge your quests. The games afoot be bold in realms of card and dice addressed. Their story shall be told.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I'm your host, Andrew Lowen, and I'm joined as always by Sean. We wanted to talk about something that has been the focus of my attention, a spectacular failure in some ways, and also a significant lessons learned from Deliverance. I went all out to try to win a contest and didn't. So, which, really grinds my gears that I just didn't win. But there's a lot to be learned, a lot to unpack, and really a lot of great lessons to share. So this is going to be a case study using Deliverance because it's my own firsthand experience. But let me give some background. So the Golden Geek Awards are awarded once a year by Board Game Geek. They are user nominated and user voted awards, which I was very excited about for Deliverance because Deliverance has a relatively controversial theme in many circles. It doesn't get a lot of critical acclaim because it's it just religious things tend not to receive accolades as commonly, we'll say. So what my thought was like, shoot, we have a group of fans that are super excited and hardcore, and they're motivated and they would love to vote for us and whatnot. And so I don't know, I just felt like the fact that it was user voted instead of controlled by one or two people or whatever would mean like, hey, we've got a better shot. And so I just went for it. I told my fans, like, go vote for this and whatnot. And to my wonder and surprise, we were actually nominated for 5. Like, we were a finalist in 5 different categories. And I know some of you listening to this is a little bit of history that you might already know. But so our board game was nominated for best cooperative game, best solo game, most thematic game, most innovative game, and then for our artwork and presentation. We were nominated for those 5 categories. And that was a really that was more than I expected by far. So I actually thought, hey, if we've been nominated for 5 games or for 5 awards, then maybe, just maybe, we could win one, and I kind of let myself think about that and decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. Like, so what if we fail? What does that mean? That means I went for it. I shot for the, shot for the stars and I reached the moon instead. I don't know if that's the terminology, but that's exactly what happened. So
Shoot for the stars, ended up in a black hole.
Yeah, shoot the stars, ended up in a black hole. Well, I actually I don't see it that way. I think that we have some significant wins to talk about, but at the same time, in some ways I felt like it was, I'll use this term maybe tongue in cheek, a spectacular failure. I did not receive any awards, nor did I get the second or third, place either. So when they announced the winners, Deliverance was nowhere to be found. And so let's kind of talk about that, break it down, talk about what it is that I did, how I feel about that, and all the other things. You want to chime in, and you have any thoughts about that kind of framing?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of interested in your sort of, at the end of it, how did you feel? Because I kind of felt you kind of reminded me of the Wojak Doomer meme. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the guy who's like really disheveled. It's like you probably, I know that you did a lot, and you probably, I don't know if you if you're on the verge of burnout, but I do know that you sent a lot of emails. You got all your community updates. You ran an ad even. So, how were you feeling at the end of kind of the big push when all was said and done? Were you kind of feel like you're at the end of your tether, or are you feeling pretty good?
I definitely stretched myself. I will say that I don't want to say I shirked responsibilities in order to put my all into it, but I definitely cut out we'll say, the least important things and only did the essential critical things that I had to do. I worked out less. I probably ate less. I definitely set up my computer more. I had a lot of writing to do and I thought about it all the time. So it definitely occupied a significant amount of my thought capital to 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 really make a go for this. And I want to say the awards were like around, I want to say April 24th ish is when the nominations were announced, and the awards were actually given out on the 13th, or like the 14th of May. So I was working from the time that I heard the nominations were in to the time that they were announced. That was probably 2 weeks, and then from that time until the awards were given, that was another, like, 2.5 weeks. So for about a month, I spent, I don't know, maybe 15 extra hours a week on Deliverance stuff, which is a lot. Like, that is a high impact of extra stuff. I actually, I didn't. So some of the things that I had to cut out, we're doing a lot of game development on the Deliverance expansion, and I had to do a lot of delegating to actually get the time that I needed to write emails and not kidding. I can share about like the actual things that I did, and how many emails I wrote and other things. But to actually get the time, I couldn't take all that time from Crowdfunding Nerds, Next Level Web. We have clients that need servicing and whatnot, and some of those are on me, super important. I made one mistake there though, but that I just felt stupid. But in general, delegation was so important. If I there were many occasions where people reached out to me personally on like Facebook Messenger, because I tend to be involved in various Facebook groups and people refer to me for marketing and whatnot, and people will send me direct messages on Facebook and ask about our marketing services. And many times I'm like, I would normally just take those meetings myself and say, yeah, I'd be happy to meet with you. Here's my calendar link, book a meeting and let's talk and whatnot. But I actually referred every single one of those to Ryan, who, is normally does this stuff for us. But I also sometimes, get in there and help. Just, sometimes we have a lot of clients that, or a lot of people that want our services and whatnot. And so that's one area that I kind of typically help. But I didn't take one single meeting like that. I think I took one or two meetings to help people that were more like a paid consultation for a client that really needed advice here or there, on a publisher front, or maybe like, am I doing this correctly with my marketing, and it's time sensitive. And so, but in general, I delegated a ton. And one of the big things that I delegated was all the development for Deliverance. On that side, we've got a development team that is, filled with like part-time or a couple of part-time and contract workers that lead a team of volunteers for, testing various bits of content. And I stepped back almost entirely from that for almost a month. I had involvement like once a week in a team meeting for Deliverance stuff, and could keep an ear on the ground for what's going on and whatnot. But that was a major thing that suffered, if you will. It had to suffer for the sake of the Deliverance contest, right? Or the Board Game Geek Golden Geek Awards. And so that's where the time came from. And then, as I mentioned, I worked out less. I stayed up late a little more. I spent a little less time with my wife and in the evenings. And, that was kind of the sacrifices that I had to make in order to put the extra hours in for this thing.
Yeah, I think that's important, because when you are trying to do a push like this, it does require sacrifice, and you can't do everything. So being able to set those boundaries with your family or with those around you, your colleagues, even, as you said, delegate. It's really important that you keep those communication channels going, so you do have the room to stretch your legs.
Yep. I will say that one really important thing, on to your credit and really to our team's credit, you guys do a really good job moving the ball forward, taking ownership of what it is that you're doing, and you really are a huge support system for just being able to do that, which is really important. And then also, my wife is also a huge support system that enables me to do things like work late, or um, you know, she takes the kids when I would normally have done that, so that I can think about the email I'm writing or other things like that. And I find that when either one of those two things are out of balance, there's a problem that's not getting addressed or something like that. And then I were to do something like this, it tends not to work. So if I'm like, if you're like, hey, I have a client that really needs help and you're the only guy that can do it, and I'm like, well, yeah, but I can't. Just try to like do your best. Then I might as well be saying like, there's a clock on how long that client would be working with us, because I'm not willing to devote the time that I need to ensure that account is taken care of, right? And that I don't actually say those words, but my actions are doing that. So certain things like I must prioritize even over delivering, the things I want to do. There are certain things that I must do in order to, like for example, you can't prioritize a contest over paying your bills, right? Like you've got to do certain things. And if you don't, like you can be, I don't know, you can take fifth place in the contest or whatever, and then you'll be homeless, or maybe your power will be turned off, and that type of thing is just not acceptable, right? And so in a similar manner, if you or one of the other team members has something that's critically important for me to address, and I don't address that, then it's going to throw every positive thing that I've got going on one area into jeopardy, because the thing that actually generates the my the ability to feed myself is having trouble. Or rather, maybe I can sacrifice a couple of clients now, but we'll have poverty later, because I made that choice. So there were certain things that I had to say no to, but other things that I absolutely had to say yes. That's a priority. um and so in the same way, I was going to go, like for example, personal story, I was going to go to jiu-jitsu on Thursday. This is like last week Thursday. And it was important because there was a guy it was his last class. He's in the military and he's leaving, and he's good great member of the team, Brazilian jiu-jitsu team that the academy I train at. And my wife told me, if you go tonight, all the kids were sick and just having a really hard time. The baby was having a hard time, and none of my kids would have been able to go with me. I have 7 kids, so, and one of them is 6 months old. So my wife telling me, if you go, you are prioritizing jujitsu over your family, and it is like an idol in your life. I absolutely had to stay home. It was super essential that I stayed home. If I prioritized myself and my own mental health at that point, I would be sacrificing the mental health of really the support network that allows me to do those things. And so that's really important. Maybe a lesson that I will say I've learned through, fiery trials in the past, of not prioritizing the right things, even when I want to do this extra work and really want to give my all for something. Like I knew certain things, like I had to prioritize even over this. And the actions that I took, I'm proud that I stayed home, even though I really wanted to say goodbye to this guy. I really wanted to roll with him one more time. Roll me is like grapple, like you know uh combat type, whatever. Anyway, simulating his death with chokes and, in pajamas,
Love you,
but being
man.
friends the whole time. Yeah. So it was a choice that I had to make on purpose that I think allowed me stability, because when if I were to have prioritized jujitsu that one night, it would have thrown my wife off. We had a terrible night's sleep that night because the baby was crying, all stuffed up, and some of the kids would come in and wake us up. So I was woken up like 4 or 5 times. And I had to get up. I went to bed at like midnight. I had to get up at 7, and I was woken up like 4 or 5 times. And it was just a really rough night. I didn't get a whole lot of work done on Friday because I was just kind of brain dead. And I only had a limited amount of energy. But that was something that I think that me doing that allowed my wife the ability to get just enough sleep and also feel like I was supporting her, that the rest of the time she was able to. I worked on Saturday, I worked some on Sunday, which I rarely do, but I was able to make up the time because my wife understood, you sacrificed for me on Thursday, I'm going to sacrifice for you on Saturday, Sunday, whatever. And so I don't know, a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it might be an important lesson, like how to balance. It's just a firsthand case study of how to balance something really important during a really crazy time.
Yeah, we all go through those seasons, right? I know we're as a company, Crowdfunding Nerds, we're particularly busy at this time, and it uh, can it can be almost similar because there's so many tasks that have to be done. You're trying to prioritize things, and as soon as you get something knocked down, nothing pops up. It's like, oh my goodness, it's like you're in a boat, you try to get the water out the boat, and it's like a leak and more water keeps on coming in. And it's like, I'm not making progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being scheduled and disciplined is the key, and being intentional with your time. Something I find difficult to do because I have a tendency to work later, and then it has a knock-on effect. When really it's like, I think just cut your losses. Okay, I didn't get as much done as I wanted to do today, but I'll start at the right time tomorrow rather than working later and then like
being
starting late and then
zombie tomorrow.
Yeah, or just starting later, and just, so it's I think that's important.
Yeah.
But coming back to this Golden Geek winners, I have it. I'm looking at it. Here's what won and what didn't win. You're competing against quite a lot of big names here. So, and I know
it's amazing that after looking at, like, for example, a cooperative game, the winner was a game called Sky Team. And if we look at, let's see, I'm looking at people that own it. If you can scroll down and look at the community stats. There are 13,000 people that listed that they own Sky Team. Deliverance has 1.1 thousand people that own Deliverance. So Sky Team is roughly 12 times larger of, just on Board Game Geek alone. Like, there are 12 times more people that own and have played this game. And it's just, I like, as I look at the competitors, I actually almost can't believe that we made it as far as we did, like, really, really incredible,
Yeah, they probably need like a like first publisher or first game category, because I know Distilled was also nominated and they haven't won anything either. So I think that's just it's probably just a numbers game where games have been out longer. They've got longer publishers to already have existing fan bases.
I agree. I think that there are two things that are really important that we didn't really have, and one is, of course, as you mentioned, like, Deliverance is our very first game, our very first title. We are a finalist in 5 categories for the Golden Geek Awards. That is something that I looked at other games, like Too Many Bones was only nominated for like 2 categories and they didn't win anything. Oathsworn was nominated for a couple. Let me see, actually. Oathsworn was nominated for 2. They have a 9.0 rating with now they have tons and tons of players. Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon is a huge game by Awakened Realms that I looked at. And I chose these 3 games because I thought they were similar enough to mine that, that they would be a good idea of, and they're early enough in the other companies' histories that they're kind of coming from a similar place. Tainted Grail was nominated for 6 and actually won 1 of them. Which, so, as I look, the only game that truly dominated was Gloomhaven. If you look at Frosthaven made $13 million on Kickstarter and did not qualify for as many awards as Gloomhaven did, because Gloomhaven was just like, it took the world by storm during its year, right? So, and it wasn't even the publisher's first company or first game. It wasn't even the first time they published Gloomhaven. It was Gloomhaven's 2nd edition that took the world by storm, and so anyway, it was very, very interesting to see. So, like, dungeon crawl type games tend not to do generally as well. And actually, we've got a friend over at Board Game Geek, Chad Kreisen, that he was sharing with us that dungeon crawl, skirmish games, tactical combat type games. They're more of like a niche game that it's harder for games like that to really thrive on Board Game Geek comparative to games that are more traditional, like Euro games, like Hegemony, Lead Your Class to Victory, or Earth, or things like that. So there are it was very interesting. And kind of considering the competition, and like, for example, cooperative game Sleeping Gods Distant Skies is an expansion, like a standalone expansion to a very, very, very popular game, Sleeping Gods, from a very well-known publisher, with Ryan Lawcat as the designer. And I'm among some seriously like compelling companies. Like, it was really tough. It's a really tough award to win. And in the end, it's just a popularity contest. That's what it is.
That's a
And I
numbers
learned,
game.
yeah, yep. So I learned that the highest we performed, we actually earned 6th place in cooperative. And this is like, I was given the just given this information, but somebody looked under the hood and they were like, hey, you hit 6th place in co-op. And that was the best we did. And 6th to 5th was separated by 360 votes. So it wasn't a small gap. It was a pretty significant gap, just from 6th to 5th place. And so the first place votes probably had several thousand more votes than we had. And we have our total email list. If our total email list jumped in and voted, maybe we could have won, but that's not how that works, right? We have a small percentage of our people even use Board Game Geek. But what was cool is we actually qualified. We were nominated for awards even before, there was this thing that happened where everybody's like on our fan base is like asking for Geek Gold because they want to vote, and you needed 20 Geek Gold in order to do that. And but we got nominated for 5, and then I really turned on. I'm like, let's do this, And so a lot of our fans that don't normally frequent Board Game Geek or haven't, or are, maybe lurk more often than actually use it regularly or whatever, they're asking for Geek Gold. And I gave Geek Gold to my parents and a couple of friends, and a couple of really solid fans that were asking for it like really early, without being solicited or anything. And then I realized, I, as a designer, I shouldn't be trying to put my thumb on the scale. Like, I have like 7,000 Geek Gold, and I could have given it out 20 at a time to voters. And I just felt like, if anybody else does this, it's fine. But for me, I'm incentivized to do this, and I don't want to be seen as like stuffing the ballot box or something like that. So I didn't do it. I actually told everybody, I wrote on for one of our forum posts of Board Game Geek that I'm not personally giving out Geek Gold for this, but if you ask, then and someone else does, then I have no problem with that. And we had lots of people asking for Geek Gold and voted and all that. And we had one guy in particular trolled us, was like, what you're doing is bad. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. But it was interesting. But I feel like we just weren't in true contention for like a winner or a runner-up spot. But we did get finalists. And at the end of the day, like, we were among the top 10 in each of these categories. I think artwork, there were like 11 or 12 games that made that cut off. I'm not, maybe they were really, really close in number of nominations, and that's why there were more than 10. But we generally reached top 10, like the finalists of this contest. And that was out of like thousands of games. There were thousands of others that were trying to vie for that finalist spot. And in the end of the day, it's definitely a thing that I'll put on the next Kickstarter. It's like, we're a finalist for 5
That was my next question.
awards.
Like, are you going to leverage this in your marketing? Are you going to use it in ads? And are you going to put on the Kickstarter? Do you have a graphic made to put on the Kickstarter page?
We do have a graphic that we've been nominated for 5 awards and that kind of thing. But I don't think we'll use it in ads. The thing that I think moves the needle for some people, and really I think it more moves the needle for the masses rather than the highly educated board game alpha gamer that knows what's going on. The phrase award winning is something that you can use if you've won awards. And we haven't won an award. We've been the finalist and we've done other things like that, but
We could make up
we
some
haven't
rewards.
I know. I mean, I'm
The
sure that
Crowdfunding
there's
Nerds
an award.
Award.
Yeah. I'm sure that if anybody listening to this podcast wants to give me an award, I'll take it, like a T-ball trophy. But I think that that is something that I think can move the needle. There are other, games will say things like critically acclaimed, and they're just kind of using words like Euthia is a campaign that's on Kickstarter right now, and that's what they use. It's not won any awards, but it's critically acclaimed. And what does that even mean? Like, did Roger Ebert, give it 2 thumbs up or whatever? And, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert giving 2 thumbs up was a thing for a long time. So I don't know how much that actually moves the needle for people, but I do think that actually having this game was a finalist in the Golden Geek Awards, and there's a place to go see that. It will help people that were looking to see, is this a good game? Say, yeah, that is a good game. It's got an 8.7 rating on Board Game Geek, and it was a finalist for, whatever awards, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. I wonder how much impact awards have, because I wonder if there's a sort of distrust of award ceremonies now, because so many of them are political, or there's some, financial agenda behind, certain awards.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll say the Golden Geeks, if you look at the hotness list, that's kind of the place you want to be as number 1 on the hotness list. Everybody wants to be on Board Game Geek. It's like being number 1 on Google organically. It's like you're the best at the time. Hegemony, which won lots of awards, and Sky Team, which won lots of awards, and Earthborn Rangers, which won a few, are ranked 6, 7, and 9 respectively. And so that's not high enough to, I don't know. It's just it does probably move the needle for those people getting more sales and that kind of thing, but not like crazy, not like being number 1 on the hotness does. So I yeah.
Yeah,
But
you think they would
that
have
sometimes
like
it doesn't.
hottest game of 2023, to actually just put the game that was the most at like the rank 1 spot of the hotness list. That'd be cool, because then that's a bit more objective in terms of what people actually, and that's not something that's voted for. You could actually say, well, yeah, we got the most popular game on Board Game Geek for the year of 2023. That'd be a cool one to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's this game called Sand that's on top of the hotness list, and it's like, why is this the one that's on top? It's been on top for like the last 2 weeks or something. It's just never moved out of that one spot. And I wonder why. I feel sorry for every other game out there right now, because Sand is like the number 1 game on the hotness list, and like 300 people own it, and the forums are, they've got like a few comments, and I don't know, it seems like a game that's coming. It's a very well-known publisher in DeVere Games, but yeah, I mean, it's like, why is that first? But it's just the way it is. I'm sure that there's a reason for that, but yeah, I definitely think that in the case of Golden Geeks, it would increase, just any visibility increases sales, I think, or, has the potential to increase sales. But I would say that certain awards mean a whole lot more than others. For example, the Spiel des Jahres from Germany. If you are nominated for this, like Planet Unknown was nominated for Spiel des Jahres, you will make more sales. Like, that's a huge award. Wingspan, won the Spiel des Jahres, or Kenner Spiel is what it is. The I forget what that is, like the advanced game of the year or something like that. It's like the hobby level game of the year, whereas the game of the year is like a simpler one, and the Kinderspiel is like the kids game of the year. I think all 3 of those, have a dramatic impact. If you're nominated for that award, you'll sell like 10,000 extra units. But if you win that award, you'll sell like 100 and something thousand extra units, 140,000 extra units. But that's kind of the what to expect, and of course your mileage may vary even in that. So, but yeah, so I think that overall winning awards is not the end. That is one thing that I after like just reflecting on where Deliverance is at and where we're going and what we were planning on, it feels like, looking back, I kind of took a little detour to win, to try to win this award. I did my absolute best. We ended up getting nominated for 5 categories, but then not winning anything. And now I'm back on to what I would say, I'll just use the phrase my critical path, where we needed to be anyway. So like we need to, we had this plan. This original plan was to go to Kickstarter, to prove to everybody that this is an awesome thing, to get funded. We did. And then it's always been to support the player base while, we're adding some free content, once a quarter, and it's, people are really liking that. And we're going to go back to Kickstarter with an expansion. And the expansion, I want to raise $1 million. It's my goal to raise $1 million. So, we'll get as close as we can to that goal. But this award was like a little detour off the side. But then now that it's over, whether we won or not, we needed to go back to the critical path, which is focused on that expansion. And then, what is next after that. So we have another expansion planned after that. And those are very kind of important pieces of the puzzle. And the awards are just, gravy along the side. And maybe when we hit Kickstarter and do really well with the expansion, and we have another print run, we have a cheaper version of the game that people can buy, and we have, many more thousands of people that own Deliverance, maybe then we can win, top expansion. Or maybe we come back with a standalone game, which is in the works. Well, eventually, it's a plan that is a standalone game set in kind of the Deliverance universe that is, that doesn't require the base game to play. That could actually win a Golden Geek Award, because at that time we're going to have the fan base and all, but it's not the main thing. That's just like on the side, right? So,
Yeah, I think this is, I suppose it's a reminder just to focus on the things that you can control. You can't control, winning awards, but you can control making the best game that you could possibly make, doing your part and sharing that and advertising and getting it out
Right.
there. I think we do it unconsciously, but we can often act like magicians or wizards. The definition of magic, particularly the sort of modern magic, is reality conforming to the will. Mm-hmm. So I think we often think that we can will things we can conjure things into existence if we just will hard enough. If I work hard enough, it will happen. It's not how the world works. So it's not, it's like you can't just cast spells and things happen.
Yeah. I want to, that would be awesome. I definitely would be all about, conjuring a little spell so that I could win this or that. But that's it just is tongue in cheek, right? I don't actually.
It is tongue in cheek, but I think people could often think, oh, if there's this formula, if I just follow this procedure, then I'll have instant success. And it's like, well, it sounds like magic.
I feel like, yeah, exactly. Every marketing company that cheats people out of money, that is the tactic they use.
Yeah.
They're like, we have a secret formula that works, and if you pay us money, you're going to get access to that formula, the one thing, this one trick, this one process. And, the whole reason that we started our podcast, we're a marketing company that reveals our formula. It's called The Virtuous Cycle. You can go listen to it. It's on, I think we might, maybe, so I've been getting a lot of complaints about how our first podcast episodes are not on Spotify and iTunes and whatnot. We actually do have the first, I want to say 39-ish episodes on YouTube, which you can listen to on our YouTube channel. It's Crowdfunding Nerds YouTube channel. Episode 14 is a really big deal. It's called The Virtuous Cycle, and that is our process that we use. It's a process that it's really a system that we develop that enables, and I don't want to say developed, I'm saying develop. Like every individual board game, every individual creator needs to have a system that they can leverage to gain information, to make decisions, and move in the right directions. You need a feedback loop. Like you need feedback in order to make good decisions. And so our marketing formula is meant to give you those tools, those feedback tools. And so that in addition to just getting more people to learn about the thing, we teach them about the thing, and then eventually they back the thing. But if anything is wrong, you need to be able to have, you need to be able to know about it before you hit the launch button. And if you don't have a community that you can talk to, and if you don't have an email list that you're sending information to, and you're just relying on, the Kickstarter follows or the Game Found followers or whatever, like you're really, really hamstringing yourself. Maybe you have a breakaway hit and you don't need any feedback, and it's just going to be huge, like that. But that's a lot of people that are like, oh, you just need followers, are banking that they have the secret formula in their game that everybody knows about and everybody's just going to back it. But in actuality, you need to send more information. You need to understand, like, what do people like, what do people not understand, and a million more things. And that's a different system than like every other marketing company. It's just every marketing company is like, hey, you give me money, we do what we do so well that we're not going to show you what it is that we do. You're just going to see the statement and the spends on your credit card. That's the only thing. And you're not going to have access to it. And it's our, and by the way, your email list that you generate is actually also ours. All the things that you pay us to do is our property. That's what other marketing companies do. And I think that that's ridiculous. But yeah, I think that the system and the feedback is the important thing, right? So don't know how I got on that rant, but, So I will say this: I do feel sort of dumb, and this is something I wanted to mention. Like, in some ways, I feel kind of stupid, and the reason for that is because I sent out here. Let me actually just take a look. I sent out just in the month of May, from May 4th to May 11th. That's like a 1 week time period. I sent out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 emails. So I sent 5 emails to people between May 4th to May 11th. I sent out an email on, April 29th. I sent out another email April 23rd, April 18th, April 17th, April 15th. 2 of them on April 15th, actually. And
is that including resends?
Yes, that includes resends. So what I do is I actually split my email list into 3 different regular monthly sends. And so the first one is to the general list that is very engaged. The second one is to what I call my never openers, the people that have been sent the last 10 campaigns but have not opened any of the last 10. That group is classified as a never opener, and they get like a once a quarter or sometimes monthly, but just they don't receive email correspondence as often, and I don't do email resends to them or anything like that. So the people that I send an email to that are a part of my main, the main group of people that open, we get 50-40% open rate. I mean, the emails right here, so I sent an email out on April 23rd, which is for the Golden Geek Award. That was the first email that I really sent out. That I deviated from my normal monthly emails. So April 17th or 15th, I sent out an email to like my main list, and then 2 days later, I resent that email to the people that received the email but did not open it. So it was the same exact content inside the email, but I put a different subject line that might actually inspire them to open. So I had 44.2% of my email list open the first email, and then of the resend, another 18.3% opened that one. And that's pretty common. But then I sent another email out like a week after that on April 23rd, which was for the Golden Geek Award. I had almost 50% opens, 49.6% open rate on that one. So it was a call to action, and my audience is listening, which is really great. And then I sent another email out on May 4th, which was my that month's email, but it had a really I think a really impactful headline and that kind of thing. I had a 51.4% open rate on that one. And so that's to about 4,400 people. So then I resent an email like a few days later to the people again that received the email but didn't open it, like on my main list. So it's not annoying the people that did open and engage and whatnot. So that's a really important piece of the puzzle, is like a lot of the people that received the email might have read the subject line but just kind of skip it. and then they see the subject line again a few days later that's different, they might actually be inspired to click if you change the reason you want to click, or the way that you say something, or maybe they just didn't have time the first time you sent it, and they do this send. So I got typically like 45% open on the first email, and then roughly like 20% open on the next one, give or take a few percentage points. But on the resend, I had a 23.6% open rate, which was a lot higher than our normal opens. And then I actually sent an email to our never openers that had a 10% open rate, which is really high. It's funny, but it's actually a really high open rate. It's 10.7%, almost 11% open rate for our never openers. And that's like anywhere from like 3 to 5% typical open rate from those people. If I were to send an email to everybody, then overall my total open rates would be like in the 30% or whatever. And over time, having email open rates in 30%, 30 to 35 to whatever percent, that's going to show other email platforms like Gmail, Yahoo, Comcast, etc., that your stuff is more often labeled as spam, or not as often opened. So by cutting out the never openers, I actually am able to keep my reputation stellar with like Gmail and Yahoo and whatnot. They're like, hey, I'm not sending this one to the promotions folder. This guy opens the emails all the time. Everybody opens these emails on a regular basis. People want to receive these, so we're going to send this into the main box, right? And so that's something that we do to just keep it high. And then I did this last chance email, which is something that I deviated from. I sent an email out on Friday, the 10th of May, which was only 2 days after sending my resend to everybody. Again, it was like the last chance, and it was maybe it annoyed some people, but it definitely moved the needle for them. 44% opens just 2 days after receiving another email. 44% of people open, which is a really great open rate. And then the last chance resend was 22% open rate, which was a very high percentage of, or a very high amount of people. So overall, like for every email send and resend, our average open, like total number of people that open is like 2,200. We were getting like 2,600 typical opens, from individual people off of our list of 4,400, which is really huge, really huge. And so that's I did all of that, and then we didn't win anything. So that's why I feel kind of stupid. And that wasn't the only thing we did. I sent out so on the last day of every month, I always send out a Kickstarter update, and then typically use that to populate the content of our monthly newsletter. And then of course, we have new stuff in the newsletter that happened after the Kickstarter update. Anything that's new and relevant, I put in that. So I put a Kickstarter update out on the 30th of April, telling people about the Golden Geek nominations. And then I put and I don't normally make other updates outside of the last day of the month, but I did this time. It was on May, whatever it was, like May 10th or something, a couple of days. The awards ended, last days to vote was May 12th. So it was like, I'm just going to put an update out, make it simple, and ask people to vote. I put updates out on Board Game Geek. I put a few updates out on Facebook, like in our Facebook group, my personal Facebook. I put updates out on Discord, a couple of like everyone notifications, and we didn't win anything. So I feel kind of stupid, but at the end of the day, like I looked at it like this. I can try and give it everything I've got, or I can go like half-hearted. At the end of the day, I've been saying that a lot. At the end of the day, but after all is said and done, I can look back and say there's nothing else that I could have done to make anything different other than like cheat or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually also I shared information with some reviewers, like Alex Radcliffe. I was talking to him about like the Golden Geek Awards. He's like, oh yeah, I haven't talked about that. I should have brought that up. He has like a weekly video that he shares with news and or about that of goings on in the industry. And I was like, oh yeah, you should. And Deliverance was nominated for 5 awards, and you should tell people that. And of course, he's like, well, no, I can't. That's like conflict of interest. You're a publisher, and I'm trying to be unbiased here, And I'm like, well, what if I gave you information that was newsworthy about Deliverance? And he's like, I mean, that's maybe different. So I gave him information about when we were going to launch. I gave him, for our expansion and what is going to be in the expansion, which is actually kind of a cool idea. I was able to share with like several thousand people, information that's going to be in the expansion, that we're working on adding a 5th player in there. We're working on, it's going to feature more of like, Alex did a review where he criticized some of the missions are kind of just move forward and attack in various flavors. And I told him, to kind of his review, I said that it was going to be more objective driven. So there's some more strategic depth in, are you going to go for the secondary objective in this mission or not? And he was really excited about that. So he shared, and then it was cool because he shared about the Golden Geeks, and he talked about who he would vote for. He actually mentioned our name once or twice, but he was like, he wouldn't have voted for us first, but he mentioned our name like for 2 different places. And then he talked about our stuff, and then was like, yeah, and they're up for 5 Golden Geek Awards, and if you want to vote for Deliverance, now's your chance. And he moved on, and I thought that was really cool. That kind of worked out, for us, that we had an opportunity to share with a lot of people there, and then we won nothing. So it's like, part of me feels a little stupid, but would I have done it again the exact same way given the information I had? Absolutely. Absolutely would have. And I think that anybody listening to this, looking at the end result, thinking, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I definitely got some more unsubscribers on my email list. It actually really wasn't very bad. Normally, like we get like 15 or so unsubscribes per email send, anywhere from like 10 to 15. And we did not deviate out of that number when I sent each of our original emails. Each resend, we get, maybe like 0 to 5 unsubscribes. But then, yeah, like understanding that I had really no true chance of winning, I feel like that is not something that should have played a factor into my decision. Like I went for it. It didn't work out this time. My road to success is paved with one more failure, and that's the bottom line. It's like, I failed here. We get to talk about it. We get to learn about it. And I'm not discouraged, at the end of the day. I think I was a sad panda for like a little while, for one day, but then I realized, there are a ton of people that love this game. We have a lot of momentum going into our next Kickstarter, and I really I have nothing to be ashamed about at all. Like we accomplished something incredible. So
Yeah, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yep.
I know whenever I feel discouraged, just look at the stars at night. It's like, I'm so small. It's just everything in this world is so small.
Yeah.
So you get a better perspective, when you just look up.
Right. Absolutely.
Just look around you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's better to fail than I think to suffer regret. So I think if you could kind of walk away. I did my best, didn't work out. I'm satisfied. There's the satisfaction that you tried. Well, if it's like, oh, I kind of half-heartedly did it, or I didn't do it at all because I was lazy, I think that would be a far worse feeling than I gave it my all and I fell short. And as you said, there was a silver lining because it got you a bit more exposure with Alex and his stuff there.
Yeah. And well, we certainly are. I mean, I think my fans are kind of frothing at the mouth for the expansion content and for everything. I mean, they're very excited. They certainly remember Deliverance. They certainly know us. And it feels really good to have fans that are just engaged. Nobody said that they were annoyed at my attempts and emails and correspondence and whatnot. I did my best to kind of vary the thing. I also ran a contest with a feedback form, which I talked about over the last couple podcast episodes, and we've received, like 431 responses, and I'll be picking winners out of that to win cool stuff. And we got just a ton of great information. And so it wasn't all for nothing, but but yeah, I mean, like there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are hopefuls. They're crowdfunding hopefuls, and they haven't yet maybe even revealed their project to the world. And but they have a lot of stock, a lot of hope in what it is that they're doing. And like, myself, I was looking at games and creators that were further ahead than me experience success. And there was a little bit of envy, like, man, they're where I want to be. And there are just levels to this. Like, I raised $314,000. We went and we sold out all of our stock and made, $800,000, total in, between the pledge manager and like after our, whatever. But that's small fry. That's probably what Wingspan does in like, a month. I don't know. But it's something that, like, I'm here, and there are many, many, many people that are behind me and that are looking up to me. But then, or projects like mine, like, wow, this person is successful, and I wish I could raise $300,000 on Kickstarter. For me, I had 2,717 backers, which is really, really, really good for like a first time project. It's like very good. But it's not better than Distilled or Galactic Cruise. Like, they both did better than me. First time creators. And there are levels to this. Like, there are other people that are more successful and that are going to be more successful, but I'm on my own path. And I'm looking at people that are further ahead than me that have 5, 10, 30 games under their belts that are winning awards like this, thinking, I want to be one of those people. And it just, I'm it's very easy to fall into envy and have that envy cripple your productivity. But you can't let that happen. For those people that are behind me or in front of me, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't let the frustration of not being as popular as someone else, stop you from doing your very best. Like, get out there like I did and failed, and try your very best at what it is that you're doing. And maybe you'll have a spectacular failure like mine, or maybe you will actually achieve more than you expected. When we went to Kickstarter the first time, I definitely achieved more than I expected. So maybe we'll achieve that $1 million big, hairy, audacious goal that I have for Kickstarter, in our next campaign. And maybe we won't. Maybe we'll only make 300,000. That's a lot of money, So, let's just like keep this in perspective. Like you said, you look at the stores and you're like, I feel so small.
Yeah. But I also
It's
think
okay to be small.
there's a level of trying to be content as well. Because I imagine that if you ever got to a point where you were at the quote unquote success of these bigger companies, then the goalpost moves, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's always relative to where you are. So it's like, oh, I want to be there. So like, you can constantly look to the future or look to something else and be like, oh, I wish I was there. And then there's an element you have to be, well, am I happy with or without those things? Or am I content with or without them? And I think that's a better sign of success rather than constantly trying to fill some void in you with something.
Right. That void just gets larger. It just gets more hungry. The more success you experience, the more hungry you become. And I actually think that I would challenge people and ask, like, is it even the right thing to think about? I always look at, the idea is like you have this yearly goal that you break into 12 monthly goals, and you break the 12 monthly goals into weekly and daily goals and whatnot. And then when you accomplish your daily goal 30 times, you've accomplished the monthly and so on. Well, you don't spend all your time looking at the yearly goal. It will just seem like too big. Right. And unless you have a, really small goal, like, I want to do a cartwheel once this year, we're not talking about things like that, like Creed from The Office. But I think that, I always liken it to looking at the Lonely Mountain in The Hobbit. At the end of The Hobbit, the first Hobbit movie, I loved all 3 Hobbit movies. Get out if you don't like the Hobbit movies. I'm thankful for more Lord of the Rings, but it's obviously not as polished as the Lord of the Rings. And then don't be started on the Rings of Power. I watched it, but it's not Lord of the Rings. Anyway, there's this scene at the very end where Bilbo is looking at, they're dropped off in this kind of high mountain area by these eagles, and Bilbo turns around and he's like, oh wow, look, the Lonely Mountain, and they can see it like in the distance poking up into some clouds, and it's just this like dark shadow on the horizon. And that's where they have been working to go. Like they need to go there. And that's like the yearly goal. But then, when, in the next movie, they get into all sorts of other shenanigans, but you can't see the Lonely Mountain when you go down into the forest and into the valleys. You won't be able to see your end goal. But, and you shouldn't be looking at it. You should be looking at your feet, walking one step in front of the other. If you're spending all your time looking at the end and you fall into a pit, you're an idiot. You should have been looking at your feet. So, I think that kind of encapsulates the way that I look at things for myself. Hopefully that helps somebody out there. And you're not really an idiot. I mean, I'm saying the proverbial you, for falling into the proverbial pit is a proverbial idiot. I don't know if that's less offensive.
Home is behind, the world is ahead. There are many paths to tread. Oh, the rings.
Yes. Well,
yeah, I think it's an analogy we can all understand.
Yep, amen to that. So thanks for listening to my rants, and it's really the overflow of my whatever I'm feeling. This podcast was born.
Did you scream in a pillow?
Yeah, I did. I screamed at the sky a little bit. I smacked sticks on the ground. So
I feel sorry for the dude at jiu-jitsu. You probably got choked a bit harder than usual.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess that's enough for now. Join our Crowdfunding Nerds community. It's awesome. On to the theme song.
Crafters of dreams in vivid streams, charge on with gallant flair. 6 nights of trade, their mark is made in the board game designer's lair. Andrew leads with valiant heat, his strategy supreme. Shone by his side, ideas collide, a crowdfunding team's dream. Rise, creators, pledge your quests. The games afoot be bold in realms of card and dice addressed. Their story shall be told. Yeah. Rich of designs they twist and bind, a maze of epic lore. Jacob's words like sharpened swords cut through the market's core.